The scream came from the room upstairs. She didn't run, because she knew who was inside. When the man beside her said, "Sign this, or she dies," her hand was already shaking. 30 minutes earlier, Elena had been wiping down the marble bar in the VIP lounge of Obsidian, the kind of club where the wealthy came to sin in velvet darkness. The music pulsed through the walls like a second heartbeat. But up here, 3 floors above the dance floor, everything was muffled, controlled. She wasn't supposed to be here. The regular server had called in sick, and her manager had grabbed her by the arm, desperation in his eyes. Just refill their glasses. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look at their faces, do you understand? She'd understood. Everyone in the city knew what Obsidian really was. A front. A beautiful, expensive front for men who dealt in things that never saw daylight. Elena had kept her head down, moving between the private rooms with a tray of crystal glasses and bottles that cost more than her rent. She'd been careful, invisible, until she'd opened the wrong door. The room had been dimly lit, heavy curtains drawn despite the floor-to-ceiling windows. 3 men stood around a fourth who was on his knees, hands bound behind his back, blood dripping from his mouth onto the Persian rug. The man holding the gun had turned toward her. Their eyes met. She would never forget his face. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that didn't blink, didn't widen in surprise. He looked at her the way someone might look at a minor inconvenience. A stain on expensive fabric. "I'm sorry," she'd whispered, stumbling backward. "Wrong room. I'm sorry." She'd closed the door. Her hands had been shaking so badly she'd nearly dropped the tray. She'd finished her shift in a fog of terror, jumping at every sound, watching the exits. But nothing happened. No one stopped her. No one followed her to the employee locker room. Maybe they hadn't cared. Maybe she'd been lucky. She'd gone home to the tiny apartment she shared with her sister, climbed into bed, and tried to convince herself it was over. She'd been wrong. The knock came at 2:47 a.m. Elena sat up in bed, heart already racing. No one knocked at this hour. No one who brought good news. "Lena!" Her sister's voice, groggy and confused, came from the other room. "Are you expecting someone?" "Stay in your room, Mia." Elena crept to the door, peered through the peephole. 4 men stood in the hallway. Suits. Expressionless faces. She recognized none of them, but she knew what they were. "We know you're in there, Miss Volkov." The voice was calm, almost polite. "Open the door, or we'll open it for you." Her mind raced. Fire escape. Back window. But Mia. The door to Mia's room opened. "Elena, what's—" Everything happened too fast. The apartment door burst inward, cheap lock shattering. Hands grabbed Elena, forced her against the wall. She screamed, fought, but they were too strong. "Mia, run!" But her sister didn't run. Couldn't run. 2 of the men had already crossed the small living room, had already grabbed the 17-year-old girl in her sleep shorts and oversized t-shirt. "Let her go!" Elena's voice broke. "She has nothing to do with this. She doesn't know anything." "Neither do you," one of the men said. "But you saw something. And that's a problem." They dragged both sisters out of the apartment, down the stairs, into a black SUV with tinted windows. Elena's mind spun through possibilities, through escape routes, through desperate prayers. Mia was crying silently beside her, and Elena squeezed her hand. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, though she didn't believe it. The younger girl's fingers were ice cold. They drove for 20 minutes, winding through streets Elena recognized until they didn't anymore. The city gave way to industrial districts, then to a part of town where streetlights were sparse and buildings had no names. The SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath what looked like a renovated warehouse, concrete and shadows. The sound of their footsteps echoed as they were led through corridors that smelled of expensive cologne and gun oil. Elena kept Mia close, kept her breathing steady even as her own heart hammered against her ribs. They stopped in front of an elevator. One of the men pressed the button for the top floor. "Where are you taking us?" Elena's voice was stronger than she felt. No one answered. The elevator doors opened onto a space that didn't belong in a warehouse. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Art that probably cost more than Elena would make in her lifetime. And there, standing with his back to them, looking out over the glittering lights below, was the man from the room, the one who'd held the gun. He turned slowly, and Elena felt Mia's hand tighten in hers. "Miss Volkov," he said. His voice was deep, measured, Russian accent barely noticeable but present, coloring the edges of his words. "Do you know who I am?" Elena swallowed. "No. My name is Mikhail Konstantin Volkov." He took a step closer. "I own this city. Every business, every politician, every piece of leverage that matters. When I have a problem, it disappears." He let that sink in. "You," he continued, "are a problem." "I didn't see anything." The lie came quickly. "I opened the wrong door for 2 seconds. I don't even remember what—" "Don't insult my intelligence." His voice didn't rise, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You saw. You remember. And you're a liability." Mia made a small sound, something between a whimper and a sob. Mikhail's eyes flicked to the younger girl, then back to Elena. "Your sister," he said softly. 17 years old, still in high school, applying to colleges, I believe. She has a bright future ahead of her. Elena stepped in front of Mia. "Leave her alone. She wasn't even there. She doesn't know anything." "I'm aware." He moved to a desk, pressed a button. "But she's useful." The scream came from somewhere above them. A woman's voice, raw with terror and pain. Mia flinched violently. Elena's blood turned to ice. "What is this?" Elena demanded. "What do you want?" Mikhail opened a drawer, pulled out a leather folder. "I want to show you what happens to problems that don't cooperate." He nodded to one of his men. "Take the sister upstairs, room 7. "No!" Elena lunged forward, but arms caught her, held her back. "No, please, don't hurt her. I'll do whatever you want." Mia was sobbing now, struggling as they pulled her toward a staircase at the far end of the room. "Lena, Elena, please, let her go!" Elena screamed, thrashing against the hands restraining her. "She's a child, please!" Mikhail watched this with no expression at all. When Mia disappeared through the doorway, her cries echoing down the stairs, he raised a hand. The men holding Elena released her. She stumbled, caught herself on the edge of his desk. "Sit," Mikhail said. "Go to hell." "I've been there. It's called Chechnya." He pulled out a chair. "Sit down, Miss Volkov, or the next sound you hear will be your sister's screams." Elena sat. Her whole body was shaking. Rage and terror warred inside her chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. Mikhail sat across from her, opened the leather folder. Inside was a contract. Multiple pages, dense text, official-looking stamps. "I have a proposition," he said calmly, as if they were discussing a business deal over coffee. "You saw something you shouldn't have. That creates a problem. I solve problems in one of 2 ways." He pulled a pen from his pocket, set it on the desk between them. The first way is permanent. Your sister dies. You die. Your bodies are never found. The world moves on. Elena's hands curled into fists. The second way, he continued, is this contract. You sign it, you agree to its terms, and your sister walks out of here unharmed. She goes back to school, applies to colleges, lives her life. She forgets this night ever happened. And me? Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. You belong to me. The words hung in the air. Elena's eyes dropped to the contract. The first page was titled, Agreement of Exclusive Service in bold letters. What does that mean? She asked. It means you work for me. You live where I tell you to live. You do what I tell you to do. You speak to no one about what you saw. You become part of my organization. As what? A servant? As whatever I need you to be. His eyes never left hers. I own several legitimate businesses, hotels, restaurants, import companies. You'll work in one of them. Publicly, you'll be an employee. Privately, you'll be insurance. Insurance. Against you ever deciding to go to the police. Against you ever becoming a threat. He tapped the contract. Read it if you like. But your sister is upstairs, and my men are not known for their patience. Elena grabbed the contract, tried to focus on the words. They swam in front of her eyes. Exclusive service for a period determined by the primary party. Shall reside in accommodations provided by the primary party. Shall not engage in outside employment without express permission. Breach of contract will result in immediate termination of all protections. Termination of protections. She knew what that meant. How long? She demanded. How long does this last? That depends on you. That's not an answer. Mikhail leaned back in his chair. You saw what happened in that room. You saw a face. In my world, witnesses don't retire. They disappear. This contract keeps you alive. How long it lasts depends on how well you follow its terms. Elena's hands were shaking so badly the papers rustled. From upstairs, she heard footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Mikhail picked up his phone, pressed a button. Bring her to the door, he said quietly. 30 seconds later, Mia appeared at the top of the staircase, tear-streaked and terrified but unharmed. 2 men flanked her, hands on her shoulders. Elena? Her voice was small, broken. Mikhail set his phone down. Sign this, or she dies. Elena's hand was already reaching for the pen. She didn't read the rest. Didn't have time. Didn't have a choice. She signed her name at the bottom of page 6 and again on page 8, and again on the final page. Her signature looked nothing like it usually did. Shaky, desperate, barely legible. When she finished, Mikhail took the contract, examined each signature carefully. Good. He stood, straightened his cuffs. Your sister will be driven home. She'll receive a visit tomorrow from one of my associates, who will explain to her that this was a case of mistaken identity. She'll be compensated for her distress. She will not contact you. What? No, I have to. You will not contact her. Not for 6 months. This is non-negotiable. His voice was iron. If you try to reach her, if you deviate from your instructions in any way, the contract is void. Do you understand what that means? Elena's throat closed. Do you understand? Yes. Mikhail nodded to his men. They released Mia, who ran down the stairs and crashed into Elena's arms. It's okay. Elena whispered into her sister's hair, even as tears streamed down her own face. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Don't leave me, Mia sobbed. Please don't leave me. Elena couldn't answer. The men were already pulling them apart, leading Mia toward the elevator. "I love you," Elena called after her. "Mia, I love you. Remember that." The elevator doors closed. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elena stood alone in the center of the room, arms empty, heartbreaking. Mikhail returned to his desk, filed the contract away in a locked drawer. "You'll start tomorrow," he said. "One of my people will collect you at 8 a.m. Bring nothing from your apartment. Everything you need will be provided." Elena didn't move, couldn't move. "You should get some rest, Miss Volkov. You have a long day ahead of you." She turned to look at him, this man who had just bought her life with a pen and paper. "When?" The word came out hoarse. "When am I free?" Mikhail met her eyes, and for the first time, something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "That's the beautiful thing about our agreement," he said softly. "I never specified an end date." Elena's blood turned to ice. She grabbed the desk. "What?" "The contract states the terms last for a period determined by me, not 6 months, not a year, not 5 years." He came around the desk, stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. "You're free when I decide you're free, and I haven't decided yet." The room tilted. "You tricked me. I gave you a choice. You made it." "That wasn't a choice. You threatened my sister." "And she's safe. You're welcome." He moved toward the door, paused. "Don't look so devastated, Miss Volkov. Some women would consider this arrangement quite comfortable. You'll have security, housing, income. All I ask in return is your obedience." "I'll never—" "You'll do exactly what I tell you to do." His voice cut through hers like a blade. "Because if you don't, your sister pays the price. And I promise you, when I can make her suffer in ways you can't imagine." He opened the door. "Welcome to the family, Elena." She didn't sleep that night. They gave her a room. A beautiful room with a king-sized bed and silk sheets, and a view of the city that should have been breathtaking. She sat on the floor in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, and stared at nothing. When dawn broke over the skyline, painting everything in shades of gold and blood, Elena finally understood what she'd done. She hadn't saved her sister. She'd sold herself to the devil, and he hadn't told her the price.